Welcome to Not Today, Satan, a devotional where we really get to the bottom of some of the devil's greatest tactics that he tries to use to destroy your life. One of them that he uses repeatedly in our lives is a tactic called confusion. Confusion. I think that one of the reasons why this tactic is so brilliant is because so many of us dedicate our times trying to understand a lot about a thing so much that we get swept up into a discussion of something that we forget the simplicity of most of life. We take what is simple and we make it complicated. And I would dare say this is a tool that the devil uses quite a bit to get you off track in your relationship with God and with other people. So I want to look at how this worked in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. And we're going to be examining snapshots of Adam and Eve in the fall or all throughout the week. Adam and Eve are in the perfect world. God has given them dominion over the entire planet. They could do whatever they want. He just instructs them not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He says, if you eat of this tree, you're going to die. So it was a clear directive, real simple, real easy to understand, but the devil appears in the form of a certain serpent, and immediately he begins to convolute the message that God had established. Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. He sees Eve, the devil, and he says to the woman, did God actually say, you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? He says, wait, before you really shut the idea out of having this delicious fruit, because look at that fruit, it is tasty. You are used to eating all these other trees. You're used to eating all this other stuff. But really, did he really say you can't eat this? Like out of all the fruit, just this? And that doubt begins to kind of turn over. Until finally we see that she's deceived. She gives in, and we're going to talk more about that in the days to come. And she eats of the fruit, then gives her husband to eat of the fruit. And this becomes the worst drive-through experience in the history of mankind. With that being said, this is how the devil does it. God has given you something that he wants you to do. God has revealed something to you in his word, through your time with him. In time that you have where you're getting to know him, where you're getting to understand him better. And then as soon as you go to become a doer of the word, as the book of James would say, you start to question, well, did God really want me? I know Jesus said to love my enemies and forgive them, but really, do I have to forgive this person who's a nasty person? Do I have to do good to someone who's struggling? Do I have to be kind when somebody was nasty to me? Do I have to not spread gossip and slander on someone when I think a lot of this stuff is true? And we start to question, and we make things confusing that God has made simple, because the devil is an author of confusion. So I want to shortcut this and challenge you to not make something complicated that God has already said is simple. Don't do that. Don't complicate something that's simple. Now, with that in mind, here's a question. The question is, so if the devil authors confusion and derision, can the devil plant a thought? That's a really good question. And to be quite honest, the answer is kinda, but not really. The problem isn't that the devil can get into our mind and change our thinking and manipulate our thoughts. No. The problem is that we are so ungrounded in truth that when deception comes along, and when something happens that we are kind of confused about, we don't love truth enough to be able to stand firm. This is why in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 14, the Apostle Paul says one of the gifts of people that lead and teach in the church, of pastors and apostles and leaders, he says one of the gifts is that they are to establish doctrine so that the people of God are not tossed to and fro. And I think that's a lot of times what happens. It's not so much, once again, like we talked about yesterday, that the devil is in your mind manipulating your thoughts. No, the problem is you don't know what you think. You're not rooted in truth. And because of that, confusion becomes the greatest tactic of the enemy in your life. So get to know God more. Get connected with other Christians. Get to be a person who is like an oak, planted and unmovable.